Hello, successful people. Welcome back to the i5 Success channel. I'm DK.
And I'm Mo.
Thank you so much to our subscribers.
And if you're new to our channel, welcome. So we've got this old dresser that D gave to me that I just could not let go.
And Mo wanted me to redo it, but I didn't want to paint it. So in this video, we're going to share what happened when I used wood look contact paper and rub and buff instead of paint. Check it out. I'm going to divide this video into two parts. The first part is going to be about the lessons learned from using contact paper instead of paint to redo the dresser. The second part is going to be what I learned from using rub and buff on the hardware instead of spray painting it. Now, I'm going to answer some bottom line upfront questions so you don't have to wait in suspense in the whole video. Would I do that again? Well, using the contact paper instead of paint on the dresser? No. Would I use rub and buff instead of spray painting the hardware? Yes. Another question I think you'd want to know is how long did it take? Well, I'm going to give you some video clips of what the dresser looked like when I started and where I ended up, and it took over 4 hours for me to do it. This dresser is one of the few pieces of furniture that survived the move from Maryland, and we didn't get rid of it or donate it because we love it. It's in pretty good condition. This brown that you see there with the gold is a paint job that I did back in Maryland, probably in 2015. I used a kit that I bought from Michael's and maybe used a pen, like a gold Sharpie or something that I bought from Michael's to do the gold. I had zero skill in painting furniture, but according to the kit, you really didn't need a lot of skill, so I thought I'd try it. But as you'll see when I get closer, this paint job has seen better days. It's coming off here on the top. You know, it was decent. It wasn't great when I did it in the first place. Okay, you'll see this. And now I want to try and turn what's brown on this dresser black. Now, I don't want to paint it again. What I'd like to do is do what I always do when I don't want to paint, which is to use contact paper that looks like black wood. At least it did on Amazon when I picked it out. But one of the things that is going to be a challenge is these handles, because these handles fit in here like this swings here. And I looked on Amazon to see if I could replace this with something else. And they all basically are this old style. And these here, it's very difficult to find something that's that size. And I don't want to have to sand down and deal with refinishing this wood. And you'll see down here, a long time ago, ones that look like this were lost. And so I bought these from Amazon that I thought would be around the same size. But now that I'm going to do this dresser over, I'm going to see if I could remove these, paint them gold, and then put them back. Since finding something else that looks more modern to replace it, I just had a hard time doing it. So we'll see if I'm able to do that and take some gold paint and repaint those parts. So we're gonna see if that plan works. Here's how it turned out. It's not fantastic, but it's not horrible either. And the gold is so vibrant, it looks great. Now notice this wood look on the contact paper. That actually is a really nice look, and it does give the impression that this is the wood grain that you're looking at when it's really contact paper. As I'm going to talk about, there were just so many challenges with lumps and bumps and going around corners that had to be dealt with. That was the thing that really made this whole project a challenge for me. I wound up using rub and buff on the handles and on the gold feet as well as the end pieces. But look at these lumps in the seams when I tried to get in there. Actually, it's not even completely finished yet because there are so many places I'm noticing that it didn't come out right that I still have to go back and fix it and haven't done it yet. Let's get into the lessons learned from using the contact paper, and I'll put some video and pictures in so you could see what I'm talking about. Number one lesson learned, sorry, I gotta get my notes. Is all contact paper is not created equal. And I know that seems a little simplistic for me to say that, but I have used contact paper for so many things. I've used it for shelf liner. I used it instead of painting the wall behind me when I did this feature wall. I'll put up a link to the video if you didn't see how I did that. I used it in an apartment where I bought some faux granite contact paper and redid all of my kitchen counters. I've used it in a small bathroom. So I thought I was pretty well familiar with using contact paper, but they're not all the same. And I'm gonna take you in the kitchen where I have some examples set up and show you why. So the contact paper that I used for the dresser, can you see this? I wanted this because it has this wood grain look. You can even hear it a little bit how this is a heavy weight paper. And I wanted it to be heavier because it's gonna go on a dresser that's going to be used. This is the paper that I put on the wall behind me on the feature wall. It is heavy like this, but not quite as heavy. So this did a really good job of sticking to the wall. This is some contact paper that is actually pretty thin, and I used it for shelf liner when I did the inside of the shelves in the master closet when I made my shoe showcase. And I'll put up a link to that too in case you want to see how that turned out. But this worked well there. This is some very shiny and also very thin paper that I used to redo the top of my desk. I wanted it to be a marble look. This is very similar to the paper that I used when I did my countertops in an apartment where I lived. So the reason I bring this up is because when I used this heavier, less pliable paper to do the dresser, I found it very difficult to get around corners and nooks and crannies and have it really stick in there, where working with a thinner paper like this one, well, I don't know, maybe even this one, I think I might have had it easier time. This brings me to lesson number 2, which is patterns matter. When I redid my countertop and my desk using I used a granite for my countertop in an apartment where I used to live. And I also used something like this for the countertop in a different apartment. And it hides the mistakes really well within the patterns. So if you can't exactly get it around a corner or something, this is easier. This pattern, because you could see it's actually forming a shape, I don't know that it's necessarily something that hides well, but at least you can connect the shapes and kind of play it off if you make a mistake. If you're using something that's flat like this with no pattern, or you see the pattern of the wood grain on here, so it's difficult to hide mistakes because I wanted the wood grain to still go in the same direction. So lesson number 2 is patterns matter. The wood look green, it's good to make it appear as if I'm using, as if I have painted wood, but very difficult to hide mistakes with this. Lesson number 3, contact paper is easier to use on smooth, flat surfaces and way more challenging in those nooks and crannies. Like I mentioned in lessons number 1 and 2, the weight of the paper and the pattern of this paper being wood grain, combined with the fact that the dresser has a lot of edges, that made it very challenging for me to get the contact paper around those edges keep them smooth without tearing the paper, and still have all of the grain going the same direction. I'm going to show you some spots I'm talking about. Under here too, where I need to go back and like use that cutting tool to cut off the excess because it's not clean under there. There are just things about nooks and crannies that are difficult with this weight of paper. When you have all of these sides here like this, it's a little tough. That's going to take me to lesson number 4, because technique is everything. So in order to lay the contact paper flat and smooth like this, you know, I would say that it doesn't really take that much of a technique. But let me show you, when you get to these corners, doing the corner, especially under circumstances where I can't just rip off pieces and hide mistakes, was very challenging. Now, when I was using the other contact paper that looks like marble or looks like granite, when you get to the corner doing the kitchen counter, it's not really a big deal. You just kind of make a flap and fold it. But trying to do corners on something like this is where that small cutting tool came in very handy. I thought it was very challenging, and I might not try to do something like that again. Here's the top of the dresser. Wood grain look came out great. It looks pretty smooth for the most part, so that came out fine, right? When you look at the side of the dresser, going up and down, that middle piece wasn't that challenging, a flat, smooth surface. Now, you see here this edge. When I turn around, there we go. And lesson number 5 is that the tools do matter. Most of the time, I try to do projects that don't require for me to have to buy a lot of new stuff. I try to use what I already have. If you watch the video when I put the contact paper on this wall, I did not have plastic smoothing tools. I had metal, and quickly found out that the metal scrapes up the kind of paint-like finish on this wallpaper. So I did order some tools that were plastic and rubber, and I ordered a small hobby knife because I found that the regular utility knife I used when I did this, I needed a better level of control and precision, so I needed something smaller. Here's a video to show you what the tools were that I ordered and used on this project. So this time I ordered this wallpaper smoothing tool kit from Amazon. It was only a couple of bucks, and you can see why. It's got this pliable plastic smoothing tool, which is good. It probably won't scrape up the wallpaper. It came with this tiny measuring tape, the kind that you would use in sewing. So I guess that's nice. Then it has this, which I think is good because this has, it's not rubber. It feels like some type of felt coating, and this is hard plastic. So I'm thinking I'll be able to use this to get in the corners of the dresser without scraping the wallpaper. And then it came with this small utility knife. Now, good thing this thing only cost a couple of bucks, because this right here is like not a high quality thing, but I wanted something that was going to be small and handheld so that I could really make the kind of cuts that I want to with precision. Okay, lesson number 6 is that looks can be deceptive. And what I mean by that is I intentionally am not showing a perfect finished product, because I wanted you to know that that's not what's going to happen necessarily the first time that you try to do anything, even if you think you've watched 1,000 YouTube videos where people seem to be able to just knock it out and everything looks perfect. That may not look like that the first time you do anything. So for this dresser job, I would give myself an A for effort, maybe a B- with the job that I wound up doing, because there were techniques of how to smooth things around tight corners. Maybe I should have used a blow dryer to heat it up. Perhaps I should have used different contact paper. learning how to get things around corners, things like that I really did not do. I underestimated the level of technique that I was going to need when I started doing this. But practice makes perfect, or practice makes you know not to do it again. Either way. But still, I just wanted you to know this is not done. I do have to go fix it. I'm not even sure if I'm going to use contact paper or just pull it off and paint it, because at this point maybe the painting might have been easier, less time consuming, and the way to go. So just don't feel that every time you see a video and somebody shows you a perfect product, that's not what it looked like the first time they tried it. I don't think so. Okay, so that's the end of our lessons for the contact paper. Let's get into some of those lessons for the rub and buff. This is a much more pleasant experience and was way faster than using the contact paper on the dresser. But lesson number 1, have a well-ventilated area, because that stuff is potent. So I'm glad I was in a room where I was next to windows that open, but just so you know, before you use that, have a well-ventilated area. Number 2, I did not sand the handles of the hardware on the dresser before I used the rub and buff. I'll show you a video of what happened because I didn't sand it, and see for yourself. So one thing I noticed, I don't know if you could see it here, is that on the smoother metal, even when I put on a second coat of this, it started to rub off the first coat. That gives it this kind of antique-y gold look. Okay, I'm not dissatisfied with the way that it looks, but I do know that it was recommended to sand if you have smooth, shiny metal surface. I didn't do that, but next time I think if I do, it'll adhere even better. Lesson number 3, it dries pretty quickly. I believe you're supposed to wait an hour in between each application, but it seemed like it was drying up within 10 minutes of me putting it on. That's just something you should know. Lesson number 4, I think the little packet of tools, and I'm going to show you what it is that came with the rub and buff. I used gold leaf was the color of rub and buff, and when I ordered from Amazon, it came with these little applicator tools. This gold leaf is the one I bought. The kit has these little applicators too. Now, those applicator tools, 2 of them, actually 3, did come in handy because the way that that hardware is designed has these little nooks and crannies, and I was using my gloved hands and a cloth, and I couldn't really get in there well, but with some of those little tools, I could. Also, I used rub and buff on the legs to turn them gold. And I used rub and buff on those gold parts that you see on the front. Worked like a charm. That was so easy. And I did use one of those applicators on the legs to make sure that I got it on right. But I don't really think having that little pack of applicators is really mandatory. I think if I got a toothpick and maybe put some paper towel around it or something, or a little cloth, I feel like there's stuff around the house that you might be able to make do and get it done and don't necessarily need a pack of tools. I almost forgot to tell you, the best part of using rub and buff is that I did not have to take the handles off the dresser. I just put some tape around and under where the handle would touch the dresser drawer and put the rub and buff on, waited. When it was dry, peeled the tape off, done. Let me show you how I did that. I'm going to show you the finished dresser one more time. In the future, I think I might stick to flat surfaces. I don't know if I'm going to be skilling myself up to being able to go around those corners and nooks and crannies and using a heat gun or hair dryer. I'm not sure if I have it in me to do it, but if I do, subscribe to this channel and you're gonna see, do my skills improve over time, or do I just abandon that and move on to the next thing? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Please subscribe for more content about new home construction and model home tours in and around San Antonio.
And subscribe to continue to follow us as we continue to turn our new construction house into a home.
And as always, until next time, be peaceful, stay prayerful, and count your blessings.